You've been lied to your whole life. And you probably know it. And to be honest with you, nothing I'm going to tell you in this video is probably things that you haven't already heard. The only difference is I'm going to put things together in a way that you might not have heard before, connecting some dots, looking at the larger picture. Let me start off with showing you my Airbnb. That's my laundry there on the second floor. My name is Scott. I am in Vlore, Albania. And I'm not going to talk too much about myself today because that's not the purpose of this video. So if you want to know why I'm here in Vlore, why I'm in Albania, I'll put a link to one of my videos for you. But the point was, I was creating a video last night, stayed up too late, didn't get a lot of sleep today, and I tried to take a nap, but I wasn't able to because the guys were doing construction. It's a Saturday. At least here in Vlore, you can see the beach there. We're kind enough to not start until like 8-9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. But in other places I've been to before here in Albania, they start really early. Sometimes 6-7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes every day. Now, I'm angry because I wasn't able to sleep. I'm not angry at the workers themselves, but all that is part of the point of this video today. Companies are not our friends. Corporations are not our friends. Even governments are not our friends. Maybe some of the people who work in governments or corporations or companies or other institutions are friendly and friends to people and care, but the organizations themselves don't. Part of this construction was dug up. Apparently they're doing something with some of the sewers here. You can see the kind of shoddy job they've done to fix it. Albania is a poor country. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But what I am saying is that they don't have the labor rights that they should. They do not have the... Let's face it, I have to carry my garbage down a hill. You see how long it takes me to do it because they don't have garbage collection at residences. They don't have clean drinking water in most places. You have to go and buy plastic, which is bad for the environment. Albania was under communist rule until the 1990s. And then they became a quote-unquote democracy and everything changed. But for a vast majority of Albanians, their lives have actually gotten worse. Many of them are working 2-3 jobs, long hours. One of my friends, he was telling me that his boss just told him that one of the parts of his job that he thought he was getting extra money for, that he was supposedly supposed to get extra money for, was voluntary. And there was no guarantee that he'd get any protections. People were stealing his tips, and the boss said it wasn't his job, it wasn't his responsibility to do anything about it. These problems, of course, aren't just in Albania. I'm an American. I left because I was tired of the rat race. I was tired of the same lies that apply here. I was tired of the corruption. I was tired of the potholes. I was tired of companies like Big Oil getting subsidies, companies getting tax breaks to go and open up shop in one municipality or state over another, only for them to then pollute or hurt the environment or cut wages or lay off people or move to another place when they get the opportunity, when they get the next big subsidy or tax break. And all of this is related because the people in charge, whether it's in corporations or many of our politicians, are in cahoots, are in bed with these other people. And sometimes they're the same people. You have politicians who become lobbyists. You have lobbyists who become politicians. You have lobbying firms writing legislation in a lot of countries, including America. Companies are given so much. They ask to reduce regulations. They ask for tax breaks. They ask for subsidies because they say things like, oh, we're going to help the environment, or we're going to go and create jobs, or we're going to help the economy. But that is also part of the lie. Because when we're in a system where the companies have all the power and all they care about is making money, there's a disconnect. It hurts societies that don't have money for streets or for proper sewage. Here in Vlore, I can't go and throw toilet paper down the toilet because it could clog it up because of lack of infrastructure. You can see here that water just runs from various places, so much so that they have these like deep little trenches on both sides of the road. I'm assuming it's not sewage. Could be from some waterway on the mountain, I'm not sure. Some stream or something, but you can see the garbage in there. But countries don't have money to take care of their own citizens. And there's a problem with that. Because we're giving it to the people who don't need it. To the people who run the corporations, who are making sometimes 1,000 more than the person at the lowest in that same corporation. We're dependent upon these companies and corporations and private equity firms for a livelihood. But shouldn't it be the other way around? Sure, there isn't money for sewage and potholes and hospitals and schools and public housing or affordable housing or any other colleges, science, technology, because we're not taxing people enough. The corporations who basically run the world are multinationals often. You see Coca-Cola, and I'm a stockholder myself, in pretty much every part of the world. You see Burger King here. You see all the big tech firms, you see the same companies, no matter which countries you go to, in most cases. Because most countries are doing the same thing. They are giving tax breaks. They are bowing down to these corporations and to their corporate overlords, because they're either believing the lie or because it's in their best interest to accept the lie. Because often, like I said, politicians are embedded with these people in the first place. In America, politicians take money from corporations. Often they take money from other governments or organizations supporting other governments, like AIPAC, for example. And it just makes it harder for individual citizens, for denizens, to get the things they need in their community. So, my point basically is this. If all governments taxed these private equity firms, corporations, companies, if they get rid of subsidies, if they get rid of tax breaks, if they increase regulations, there will still be companies. People still want to make money. Yeah, it'll be harder. I'm not saying that. But you have to remember, back in the 50s and 60s in a country like America, where I'm from, more companies were giving to local communities. If they ended up making more money in a particular quarter or that year, they would go and distribute some of that in bonuses and increased salaries to their workers. They were part of the system. And ever since Reagan, that kind of fell apart. They ask, "What have you done for me lately?" to politicians. But shouldn't we be asking that of the corporations themselves? Are they really helping us or are they hurting us? Now, here's the other part. They have advertising. They have marketing. They do press releases. And let's be honest, press releases are just another form of free advertising for companies. They can say extraordinary claims, often without proof, often lying to our faces. We get stuck not only holding the bag, paying the costs and consequences, but also not knowing what the truth is. So let me take another example here in Vlore, Albania, where I'm at now. And this is related to the video I created last night and to the one I created yesterday. President Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, her husband, who is also a special envoy for the United States government, talk about conflict of interest, went and bought some property here in Vlore, on the island of Sazan, the largest island here in Albania, as well as on the mainland, part of what is a natural reserve and national park, a wetlands area with some of the, here's the garbage I was talking about earlier, with some of the most important wildlife left in Europe. When I say most important, I mean the biodiversity, the size, the scale. They bought this properties to build resorts. You might have seen Ivanka Trump on TV recently doing an interview talking about the subject. And you've probably seen many of the protests here in Albania, as well as now worldwide, on this particular subject. They, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, claim that this will be good for the environment, that they're doing impact studies on the environment to make sure that they don't hurt. The Prime Minister here in Albania has said that construction hasn't started yet. I can link some articles to some pictures showing that it actually has. I haven't seen it myself, so I'm not going to speak to it, but you can make up your own mind. But when companies, corporations, government politicians lie outright to people, the question becomes, what recourse do most people really have? Other than protest, other than vote. But sometimes, by the time that happens, things are too late. Just in what I'm talking about now, this resort property, they've already broken ground. They've already created a barrier to some of the wetlands. Some of that area has been destroyed. And some of the non-profit environmental groups are saying that it's irreversible. That area is damaged now. It can never come back to the way it was. And once an environment is destroyed, it's gone. Sure, some areas can be rehabilitated. But as you know, that's an expensive, long process. And if species go extinct in the meantime, because of habitat loss, because of deforestation, because of pollution, because of overconstruction, it's just gone. We're in the 6th mass extinction event right now, and it's human caused. The only human caused mass extinction event in world history. You've heard about the dinosaurs, well, this is the 6th one. All caused by humans. What we're doing to the environment, what we're doing to each other. And all this is related. I've used a term on several of my videos called polycrises. A polycrisis is where one event is related to another event, and that event is related to another event. So, using this Cezanne example, or using now data centers, they destroy the environment for future generations. They increase climate change. They often increase global warming. They increase, usually, pollution. They decrease property values of the residents who live in those areas, in a lot of cases, not always. Making some people poor. I'll give you an example to that in the description. There is a woman who owns property next to a data center in Texas, in America. She wasn't told about the degradation to the environment or what it meant for her personally. And now she might have to sell her home, probably at a loss. And that's just one small example. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't build pristine beaches. I'm not saying we shouldn't have homes at beautiful places. I'm saying we have to protect the environment for all of us. So, for example, just looking right here, here's a beach, okay? An area that was built up, and now you have a sand dune here to protect the beach. Things like this help when the water comes in. You have to do things with balance, and you have to do things for everybody, not just for individual investors. You have to do it for the community. You have to do it for the world, because it's all related. I'm here at the water. This is on island right there in front of us. This is part of the Adriatic coast here in Albania, which connects to the Ionian Sea, which connects to the Mediterranean, which connects to the Atlantic. Pollution doesn't stop at borders. Neither does environmental degradation, especially when a lot of that's being done by the same companies. So, in addition to taxing companies more, we also have to go and do more regulation, like I said. Here's one example right there. That is a bottle cap, plastic bottle cap. In the European Union, there's another one. They wash up on beaches worldwide, but in the European Union, they passed legislation. There's another one. So that the bottle caps have to stay attached to the plastic bottles themselves. Companies like Coca-Cola, using them as an example, and I get into more detail in the video I created last night, it says that it's good for the environment. But they're saying one thing and doing another thing in America, where they don't have that same protection. The bottle caps aren't attached. So if they really cared, why wouldn't they be doing it worldwide? Why aren't they only doing it in places where they have to? And there's a big stink right now. People were saying that the EU has too many regulations. Well, those regulations are there for a reason. To protect not only the Europeans, but everybody. The environment. Our futures. Future generations. In America, places like California usually have stricter regulations than the rest of America. And in a lot of cases, things like automobiles, for example, have better emissions because of California, even if you're in a different state. Because it's easier in a lot of cases for the automobile manufacturers to just go and create one set of vehicle instead of creating various different ones for different states. So instead of getting the least common denominator, we get better. countries need to work together, not only individually to create their own regulations, and to create more regulations, and to enforce those regulations, and to tax the companies that need to be regulated for that service. They need to work together across boundaries, across borders, so that these regulations help the most people, the most nations, not just one or two. So that's a big part of it. They need to be taxed more, they need to be regulated more. And that leads me on to my third point. Again, I'm connecting the dots here. And if you appreciate this video, like, subscribe, and share it. But even more so, watch some of my other videos, guys, especially my What is the Social Contract of Commons, which lays out my belief system and gives more information and a framework to how to accomplish all this, and much, much more. I also wrote a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which goes beyond anything that the UN or any government currently has. The two are related. I definitely go and recommend both of those videos if you watch nothing else on this channel or ever watch me again. So I do urge you to do that. Okay, here's an example of one of the bottles. You can see the bottle cap is off. So did that come from a different country? This make its way here from the Adriatic? I don't know. The other thing, we have to go and make sure that we enforce, like I said, and make sure companies, corporations, institutions are culpable, accountable, transparent. We have to know what they're doing. For example, that Cezanne project. The Albanian government is saying they haven't started construction. The pictures are saying they are. How can we expect corporations, private equity firms, like Jared Kushner's and Ivanka's, to be honest with us, when our government officials aren't even doing that? And we have to treat corporations not as entities themselves, and this is a big point, but as the people who actually run them. In a lot of countries, corporations are called limited liability, which means the company isn't necessarily on the hook for things that they do. But companies need to be, as does the people who run them, as does the people who do things for them, whether it's consultants or employees directly, or vice presidents or presidents. If a corporation breaks the law, they need to be punished for it. If an employee of a private equity firm breaks the law, even if he was doing it at the behest of his company, he needs to be punished for it. If there were more fines, more regulations, more enforcement, we wouldn't have half the problems we do currently in the world today. And we also have to stop taking their words for it. when a company says, or a private equity firm, that they care about the environment, but yet they're bulldozing over it, the facts on the ground say a completely different story than what the lies and the fake news that they're telling us. And yeah, they use PR and say they're using doing environmental impact studies. Not that anyone's ever seen them, whether they exist or not, who knows. But a lot of times they have to do those things anyway. And it's just good PR. It gives them breathing space. It gives them good relations with the public. But just because they do a study or a blue panel commission or a council or anything else doesn't mean they're going to do squat or act on it. It's the action that counts. The protections that count. The raises, the salaries. What they actually do for the environment. That's what matters, not what they say they're going to do about it. When companies say they're going to create jobs, sure, they might create jobs one day, and the next day lay off people. A lot of people in the world have been laid off before. I have. You can't let a company or organization or private equity firm or government lie to us. There has to be the accountability that I talked about and enforcement of that. I think it was Ronald Reagan who said, "Trust but verify." I could have that wrong. Somebody said it at least. And that's really one of the only things I agree with the man on. I've done some videos that talk about Ronald Reagan. I don't want to go into a whole rant about that, but I'll link that in the description also. But again, the world started changing from being more middle-class centric, in the West at least, to corporate overlord. And a lot of that changed under Reagan. His deregulations, his tax cuts. At one point in time in America, the richest of the rich were paying 92% effective tax rate. They're paying a lot less now, and all that started under Reagan. But anyway, we need to stop listening to companies when they tell us things that we know aren't true. First, they shouldn't be able to lie. There should be regulations against that. Just look at what the tobacco company said. I know, I used to smoke, now I vape, because I'm still addicted. For generations, they were saying that smoking was actually healthy for you. Well, we know that's a lie. I wish I had the willpower to give it up completely, but at least vaping, I hope, is better than smoking. Now, a lot of those same tobacco companies are doing the same things with food. Owning food companies in America, for example. Making food more addictive. Adding corn syrup that makes us fatter. And also less able to regulate internally when we have the sugar in our system, because our body doesn't recognize what to do with something like corn syrup. Spending millions on food packaging, on labeling, on making things as sweet as possible, as tasty as possible, as salty as possible to keep us eating. You've all heard the phrase, the term one company uses, you can't just have one. Well, that's absolutely true, because they've scientifically engineered products to make it hard for a person just to have one chip or one French fry or one ultra-processed terrible thing for the environment and for your gut and for your health. We need to get rid of this whole celebrity culture. And at this point, I'm just talking about corporatism as a component of that. What I mean by that is people spend a lot of money going and buying branded, logoed t-shirts or clothes or bags. I have one, but mine's from Sierra Club. I didn't pay for it, but this was a membership gift. So I guess I did pay for it, but not directly. Because companies are cool. They represent us, we say to ourselves. But companies don't represent us. They represent themselves. They represent their stockholders and investors. And all they care about is making money for them. Not for the lowest of the low employee, but for the stockholder. And often for the CEOs and the people who have power in those organizations and who make, like I said, sometimes 1,000 more times than the lowest person in an organization or corporation. That's who they are really creating the brand for. Everything else is fluff. When a company can charge $8 for a coffee drink in America and call it a bespoke experience, what does that say about us for believing it? But what does it say about the company who's doing it? Yeah, it's a bespoke experience, all right, because people can't normally afford to do anything like take a vacation. So for most people, the only thing they can afford is an $8 cup of coffee. That's just wrong, guys. If we had regulations, if we made prices cheaper and enforced that, and forced the government to go and stop things like monopolies and oligopolies and price gouging, like the price of your gasoline. America and Albania are both petrol states. They export fossil fuels, in other words. And yet, Albania has one of the most expensive gasolines and petrol in all of Europe. And if you're an American, you already know the prices of gas at the pump have been going up. Well, that's because of extraction. They're not helping the people who live in those countries, like Albania or America, because they're being shipped out to somebody else in a different country. And the people who live in America or Albania are paying more for it. There needs to be laws against that. There needs to be protections for the environment, the land, things that we all hold dear, things that we all should own. I'm not saying anything against private property, but the ocean doesn't belong to anybody. Should natural resources like gold mines belong to individuals, or diamond mines, or oil fields for that matter? Shouldn't the resources of a nation belong to that nation? When Albania became a democracy and got rid of communism, remember, under communism, everything was owned by the state. So all the natural resources were owned by Albania, for Albanians. Whether that's true or not, I'll let the Albanians say. But once it all fell, what happened? Somebody made buttloads of money, just like what happened in Russia when the Soviet Union fell. You ended up getting these oligarchs who bribed, who corrupted, who took advantage of the system. It wasn't made for an oligarch or a politician, but somebody benefited from it, and it wasn't the people in Russia, it wasn't the Albanians. There needs to be some protections against things like that. And we need to stop, again, the whole celebrity culture thing. Whether it's companies. We, in America, have what they call generic food. In some states, you might see it like under a white or black label, without any branding. Prices are cheaper. You might also recognize, depending where you live, companies like Aldi's, or companies like, what's the name of it? Even Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is not the best example because they're more expensive, but off-brand, but still good quality stuff, in other words. Sometimes better than the brand names, because they don't use the, in a lot of cases, the special advertising and packaging and all that other things that we end up paying for, one way or another. So, if you really love a product, I'm not saying don't buy it, but I'm saying look at other alternatives. You don't owe a company anything. You don't owe them your money, your business, your loyalty, certainly not. If anything, they should owe that to you. Companies used to give free swag like the nonprofit Sierra Club does. Not only is it a thank you gift, but it also promotes the organization. Nowadays, a lot of times it's just the other way around. Instead of getting free swag, you have to go and pay for it at a premium. And the thing is, people buy it. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I can tell you that some of the sports teams have their logos and insignias on products that cost way too much of money. Things that most of the people who actually watch those games can't really afford. No wonder people are in debt. But people buy it. And we admire the rich and famous, the celebrities, the sports figures, the actors and actresses, which I'm not saying anything against their craft. But should anyone make more money than they can spend in a lifetime, whether that's a billionaire or a movie star or a sports figure? Should people make millions and millions of dollars in salary when some of us can't afford to live? That also needs to be legislated. And we need to vote. And we need to go and speak up to power. And we need the time to be able to do that. Most of us need more vacation time. Here in Europe, a lot of Europeans get like the entire month of August off. Wouldn't that be nice? In America, there isn't any guarantee of any vacation time. In some places, people can't even find jobs. In some countries, people have no health care. And if you're an American, you know what I'm talking about. People go in debt because of health care. And yet it's taxed if you don't have it. The systems should be made for the people, not for corporations, not for politicians. A lot of politicians who don't even show up to vote, who don't read legislation, who don't write or draft legislation, who are just fed the party line, whatever party that is, or what the lobbyists give them. There shouldn't be advertising. There shouldn't be marketing. There shouldn't be press releases. And they shouldn't get free airtime, certainly. If we didn't watch commercials all the time, or see ads in billboards, the power that corporations have over us will be diminished significantly. I got rid of cable television a few years ago now. I do streaming, and I got rid of ads completely. When I see an ad now, after 2 or 3 ads, my brain just turns to mush. I feel myself getting stupider. I don't know if anyone else has ever had that feeling, but I do. But some people can't afford to get ad-free. Some people can't afford to go and buy organic, whole foods that are clean and nutritious and don't have pesticides or extra chemicals or additives or things that make it sweeter or tastier or saltier. There shouldn't be different types of lifestyle choices like that. Everyone should have the highest common denominator, not the lowest. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be rich. But again, nobody should be richer than they can spend in several lifetimes. I'm not saying don't better yourself. If you can find a path in life that is ethical and just and makes you money, by all means. But we all have a duty or responsibility not only to ourselves, but to everybody else. None of us own this world alone. And we certainly don't own it for just this generation. We have to think about the future. We have to think about the people who are coming after us, assuming that there's going to be life after us. And let's hope so. We don't destroy it first. So let's recap everything we've talked about so far. We shouldn't consider celebrities and corporations or politicians, or anybody for that matter, YouTube influencers, as people who are better or smarter or deserves our trust or admiration more than anybody else does. Things like that need to be proven, earned. And no one should admire somebody to the point of turning off their own sense of truth, their own reason, their own critical thinking. Just because an actor or actress makes millions and you like watching them on TV or movies doesn't mean they know everything about everything. I'm no smarter than you probably. I just connected the dots maybe differently than you have. You're willing to say it out loud. There shouldn't be corporate spokespeople. Corporations don't have a voice, or they shouldn't. And not only that, but they shouldn't be able to vote. They shouldn't be able to lobby. Free speech does not, or should not, go to corporations or private equity firms. Sure, if an employee or a leader of an organization wants to say something on behalf of that organization, but they should be doing it using their own voice, not some blank press release. And again, if they're saying lies, they should be held accountable for it. We need to regulate. We need to legislate. We need to protect the people who actually live in countries, not the corporations that dominate our lives, who give us expensive products and services that often break. Like my sunglasses. That offer no customer service whatsoever. That make getting refunds or credits almost impossible. or making it difficult to actually speak to a real person. All this is being done on purpose, and it's all being done as part of the issue, as part of the strategy. The more we don't know, the more we turn off critical thinking, the more we stop questioning, the more corporations or governments or politicians can just take advantage of us. That's why we need to protest. That's why we need to march. Why we have to go and do things like strikes. Legally, non-violently. Why we have to vote. We have to be present. We have to stand up. Protect ourselves. Protect others. What we do for the least of these, we do for thee. It's a golden rule, folks. Treat others as you want to be treated. Why are we supposed to follow that, but corporations aren't? And yes, we have to tax the rich, significantly more than they're taxed now. And we have to tax corporations and private equity firms. We have to make them accountable. We have to regulate them, and we have to enforce those laws and regulations. Because they're still going to operate. People are still going to want to make money, and good for them. Everyone should have a drive to be better, to live better, more conscientiously, to have a better life, to be able to take vacations. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we should all do that within a certain set of parameters that helps everybody, not just a few, not just privileged. I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. Not to get into too much about my own story, like I said, you can watch my podcast for that. I'm 56, I retired at 55, I was tired of the rat race, I was tired of everything that's happening in America right now. Culture wars, ICE, the divisiveness, the corruption, lower standard of living, lower quality of life. I took the money that I had saved from 20 odd years working for saving a house for my retirement, quit, and I'm just visa hopping for the next 3.5 years until I can take money out of my 401k. I'm not saying destroy the stock market. That would destroy my 401k. I'm not saying destroy stocks. I'm not saying destroy bonds. I'm not saying anything that would completely destroy the system or economic infrastructure of most countries. I'm saying that they have to be regulated and we have to live within certain parameters. And we all have to play by the same rules. So, this is on the protest I attended a few days ago. I'll put that link in the description. The lack of infrastructure, not only here, but in America and across the world. I'm just angry today, guys. I just needed to go and say this. I appreciate you watching. I hope you got something from it. I hope I put together a cognizant, coherent thought and strategy and argument. Because again, people aren't connecting the dots because the corporations, the politicians don't want us to. But all this is related to our environment, to our quality of life, to our healthcare, to our education systems, to everything. So again, make me a deal, okay? If you like this, go and watch the Social Contract of the Commons next. Let me know what you think. Take care, guys, and have a blessed day.